Modernism. What is modernism? Well, as we spoke about in class, modernism is a cultural movement that aimed to transform the traditional forms of art, literature, and music. New sciences, men like Albert Einstein, Sigmund Freud, new discoveries and innovations in the sciences caused people to see the world and humanity differently. They caused a withdrawal from the assumptions of the previous generation. World War I was another transformative event in the modern world. The horrific violence and loss of the Great War caused people to view society differently. The war had highlighted the destructive power of human evil. The Roaring Twenties. Roaring Twenties were a time of rebellion in society. Women challenged the status quo, prohibition was ignored, new technology facilitated transportation, credit and a booming economy enabled regular people to buy goods they could not have afforded before. But then came the Great Depression, and that prosperity was followed by the worst economic depression in U.S. history. The poverty level was unprecedented, and people were disillusioned. After that, of course, the Dust Bowl and nature too unleashed its fury on the U.S. So how did these things impact literature, art, and music? There was a rebellion against tradition. In literature, modernists experimented with literary form and expression. They attempted to make it new. They overturned traditional modes of representation and expressed new sensibilities of their time. They were influenced by the changing ideas about reality from men like Darwin and Mach and Freud and Einstein, Nietzsche, Bergson, and others. Some of the elements of literature, like juxtaposition, irony, comparison, satire, fragmented narratives, featured in modernist literature. They liked to question reality because they believed reality was never true, and they explore consciousness and reality. F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, Catherine Ann Porter, James Joyce. In art, a similar rebellion was going on. It was an era characterized by experimentation, and traditional forms of art were ignored, and artists discovered fresher forms of expression. They rejected the ideology of realism. They rejected Enlightenment thinking and a compassionate, all-powerful creator. They pushed boundaries. They dealt with abstract realities, morphed images. No single characteristic of modernist art. There was no single characteristic of modernist art because every artist experimented with something different. Picasso revolutionized art as fragmentation and abstract reality created different interpretations of reality. Andy Warhol, his famous pop art featuring cans of soup, was revolutionary. Never before had household items been seen as art. And music. Diverse reactions and challenging and reinterpreting older categories of music, new ways of organizing and approaching harmonic, melodic, sonic, and rhythmic aspects of music. Music is not a static phenomenon in the modern world, defined by timeless truths and classical principles, but rather something which is intrinsically historical and developmental. Music evolved. E. E. Cummings, a modernist poet. Put the poem pieces in order. A leaf falls in loneliness. Here's a breakdown of the poem. As you can see, the way it's formatted on the page makes it appear to look like a leaf floating down to the ground. The first character is meant to look like a 1. The A is singular article. La is also the singular feminine word for the in French. Both 1 and A are the loneliest letters in the alphabet. They can stand alone. Les is the singular masculine word for the in French. 1 is the only English word entirely written out. 1. Ness means a state of being. The poem is meant to look like a leaf falling from a tree. The leaf twists and flips, accelerates and decelerates on its journey to the ground. The letters flip-flop, the way a leaf would twist and turn in the wind. The alternation between vowel and consonant mix the twists, mimics, that should say, sorry, the twists and turns of a falling leaf too. This is supposed to signify a faster drop. This mimics the sound of the wind or the breeze. The leaf flattens out again at the word 1. One last quick drop, and it falls to a pile of leaves or to the ground. Why did we let the book appear so empty? In the original printing of the 95 poems by E. Cummings, this poem was printed opposite a blank page. It looked like a vast white space with a tiny poem in the middle. This was meant to signify the smallness of mankind in the greater scale of the universe. Just to remind you of the immensity of the universe. Well, you get the idea. But why a leaf? Leaves can be a symbol of loneliness. Leaves are forever alone. Although they are always surrounded by other leaves, their connection to the tree is always solitary. When they fall from a tree, they always fall alone. A leaf is the perfect example of something that is constantly surrounded by others like it, but it is always alone in its connection to its base. So some of the themes of this particular poem: oneness, obviously, and death. Leaves are part of the autumn. Autumn often symbolizes old age and death. So a theme in the poem is the loneliness of death. How is this modernism? Well, E. Cummings obviously broke form from the traditional structure of poetry. A poem so fragmented and out of order had never before been written. Like a true modernist, Cummings experimented with form. Some others that experimented with form Ezra Pound in the station of the metro. The apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet black bough. In the station of the metro, the apparition of these faces in the crowd. Apparitions. These faces in the crowd. Petals. Like faces on a wet black bough. Pound broke from the traditional form and language of poetry. His poem does not even include verbs. Well, that was it. Just a brief rundown of modernism and modernist poets. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.